But this is the bus ride.
I did.
Welcome aboard, everybody. This is a new narration thing for me, so bear with me if I'm not quite legible. Just yell if you can't hear me. How many of you have ever been to the rail yards before? Several of you. Probably know more about it than me. I have an information brochure that I'm going to read, but if there's anything that you want to discuss that I've mentioned, feel free to interrupt, please. North Platte is the county seat of Lincoln County. It was laid out in the autumn of 1866 by direction of General Dodge, and he was employed by the Union Pacific Railroad. By November, the rails had crossed the river, and with the toss of a coin, the town of North Platte became a reality. By the time the construction moved on west, North Platte had about 25 buildings, 300 residents, and by the fall of 1867, the railroad completed its roundhouse and other supportive structures. I think we'll go by the roundhouse. With good jobs available, the town put up roots and began to take on a permanent appearance. The first school opened in the summer of 1886. Law and order became a fall of Law and order became prevalent, and the courthouse was built in 1869. Then there were 4 churches, many stores and shops, a land office, and 3 newspapers. As a division point on the railroad, as well as being located in a rich valley, the town grew steadily. Incorporated as a village in 1873, so it was not even 10 years before it was incorporated. Became a second-class city in 1875 and a first-class city by 1910, when its population reached 4,793. By 1920, the population had doubled to 10,466, reached 17,180 by 1960, and was officially recorded as 23,878 in the year 2000. In 1890, a native-born William Jeffers quit school to become a call boy for the Union Pacific. During the next 47 years, Bill rose from the company's lowest-paying jobs to its top position as president of the great Union Pacific system. Jeffers chose his hometown of North Platte, in which he built a rail yard. Constantly updated and expanded, North Platte's Bailey Yards was now the largest such facility in the world. It covers 2,850 acres, reaching a total length of 8 miles, containing more than 315 miles of track, many of as 15,000 cars and 150 trains pass through the yards each day. The Golden Spike Tower and Visitor Center is an 8-story observation outlook, a massive operation. In 2008, North Platte was named Railtown USA by an act of Congress through the efforts of Congressman Adrian Smith and the original town associates. In another nod to North Platte's railroad heritage, Cody Park, a rail museum completed by the only Challenger steam engine in a static public display, 6,900 series diesel locomotive, the largest ever made, several rail cars, and restored depot. In the Memorial Park, another engine, number 480, a Union Pacific Class 2-8-0, makes its home. During World War II, our town became famous as the home of the North Platte Canteen. with headquarters in the dining room of the Union Pacific Depot. Thousands of volunteers served countless sandwiches, cakes, coffee, candy bars, and magazines to the more than 6 million members of the armed forces. The story of the canteen has been featured in a book authored by Bob Green called Once Upon a Town, The Miracle of the North Platte Canteen. It is a documentary produced by the Nebraska Educational Television called The Canteen Spirit. 1 week after the attack on Pearl Harbor, North Platte residents responded to a rumor that the Nebraska National Guard Troop D, containing North Platte boys, would be coming through. They gathered to meet the train with gifts, homemade goodies, and lots of love. When it arrived, it carried Troop D all right, only from Kansas, not Nebraska. After several moments of unforgettable silence, the young woman broke the impression by declaring that she wasn't going to take her goodies home. She was just going to share them with the boys on the train. Everyone else followed suit. A week later, the same young woman, Ray Wilson, wrote a letter to the editor, appeared in the North Platte Telegraph Bulletin, urging North Platte to rally for this cause and start this canteen. They found support not only among citizens. I'm sorry. Did they say anything? Oh, okay. Okay, be quiet. She found support not only in the citizens, but from the Union Pacific Railroad, which donated the use of the dining room in their depot, beginning on Christmas Day, 1941, and continuing until April 1st, 1946. This incredible group of volunteers met each and every troop train that came through town, sometimes greeting upward to 5,000 troops each day. For the duration of its existence, more than 6.5 million service personnel would rush through the doors of the North Platte Canteen for a few moments of warmth and hospitality before heading off to the various places during World War II. Although the depot has been demolished in the early 1970s, the location is denoted by a plaque and a memorial park just behind the plaza on Front Street in downtown North Platte. The story of the canteen, consisting of letters from servicemen and women, ledgers of memorabilia, and photographs, are told at the Lincoln County Historical Society on Buffalo Bill Avenue. North Platte has a proud record of military service and can be seen as the American 20th Century Veterans Memorial in Iron Horse Park, just south of the interstate, and where Highway 83 meets. North Platte has a distinction of having the first lighted airfield in the United States. It was in 1921 a representative of the Post Office Department asked the town to keep an airfield for the use of pilots carrying transcontinental airmail. The town subscribed $45,000 in capital stock and obtained land just east. Wooden hangars were built on the field that was level. The landing strip was then outlined by 100 kerosene lanterns hung on stakes driven in the ground. These lanterns were cleaned and filled daily to light each night. In February 1921, Jack Knight made his first famous airmail night flight, including successfully on the lighted airstrip in the middle of Nebraska. Although the field remained a hay meadow for the next 20 years, some improvements were made and it continued to service the country as a major link to the aviation capable of landing places after dark. In 1941, a concrete runway and electric lights were added. The terminal building was erected in 1952. Today, it's the longest runway, measures 8,000 feet. Colonel Colonel Buffalo Bill Cody gained the name Hunting Buffalo Bill to feed the thousands of hungry Gandy dancers who built the railroad. Although he was under contract with Kansas Pacific Railroad to the south, not the Union Pacific, Cody arrived in North Platte area on May 20th, 1969, scouting for the 5th U.S. Cavalry under the command of Brigadier, how do you pronounce it? Brigadier Major General E.A. Carr. Their destination was Fort McPherson, an important frontier fort located south of the modern town of Maxwell. Fort McPherson is now a national cemetery. Okay, we are in the yards, and I don't know what to tell you about this other than to look.
That's my job now.
All right.
Good morning, everybody, or afternoon, however you want to look at it. My name is Wade. I'll be your tour guide for the rest of this tour here. I have a trainman for Union Pacific. Been working for it for 22 years. And if any given point in time you guys have a question, go ahead, feel free to ask it, and stop me if necessary. But first off, if you look off to your right here, this is our wheel defect detector. This is actually a very unique piece of equipment. There's no other railroad in the world that has this. This was pioneered here in North Platte about 10 or 12 years ago. And what it does is we will run a train through that facility at about 5 miles an hour, and it uses a series of infrared and X-ray technology to detect microfractures in wheels. The steel wheels on a car, they go through a lot of stress as they're moving around, and a lot of the stresses that happen do damage to those wheels that can't be detected by the human eye. That facility there will detect those, log in their position and what car they're on and everything, and send it to the car department to let them know which car needs their wheels replaced. That blazed the way for technology shortly after we built it, to where we could do that exact same thing as the train's going down the main line at 60 miles an hour. It'll do the same thing instead of slowing it down to 5 miles an hour to go through a building. Yeah, kind of the same inspection they used to do at the homes. So basically, it detects micro cracks and fractures in the wheels. So that being said, we affectionately call that building the crack house. But anyhow, still off to your right-hand side up here, this little building off to the side is what we call our one-spot repair facility. It repairs cars. As cars coming on trains through North Platte, everything in here gets inspected every time it stops, and before it departs. Once in a while, the car forces will detect, we'll find a defect on a car, whether it be the air brakes or maybe even a wheel or something that needs repaired. Nothing can leave North Platte unless it's 100% functional. So those cars are brought over here to the repair facility, and they can be repaired in here. The facility can do just about anything that needs to be done to a car. They can do body work, they can do structural work, they can change out the wheel sets on the cars. You name it, they can do it. The question was, how long does it take to change out a wheel set? About 5 minutes or less. So they can change a wheel set on there before I can even get the lug nuts off of my pickup. Yeah, those guys, if you ever watch it, it's about a 3-step process. It's very proficient. Matter of fact, there's an area right just across over here which you can't see very well. They do entire trains. They'll change all the wheel sets on the train. Yeah, they'll do it all within one shift. So you figure upwards of close to 200 cars will be sitting there, and they'll change the wheel sets on all of them within an 80-hour period. Yeah, well, not through that detector is they can check. They check every wheel on the locomotive. Those detectors on the main line will check every wheel on those locomotives, or on every train. So at one point in time, every train that goes through here will go through one of those defect detectors. So now off to your other side here, on to your left, this is a departure yard here. All these trains that are sitting here are ready to go. As soon as they get locomotives on them and a crew called, they'll be heading east out of North Platte. Most of them, since they're manifest trains, will probably be heading to Council Bluffs. Some of them will be going to Marysville, some of them Mo Valley. Those are our eastbound destinations out of North Platte. We don't have any westbound traffic on this side right now, but for the westbound traffic, we go to South Morrill, which is basically where all our empty coal trains go to, and then Cheyenne, Wyoming, which is where our manifest trains end destination is. Now these cars, you look over here, if you can see the little orange tags on the sides of them, on some of them, those are cars that are waiting to go into the one shop for some kind of repair. Now that coal train that you see right there off to your right hand side, the black and kind of bare metal cars and everything, that train is sitting on the track that they'll be replacing all the wheel sets on. That train right now may already be done, or it may be waiting to be worked on. How often does they change the wheel sets? I really don't know. I'm sure it's as needed, or they may be on a set schedule to where they just routinely change them all. Now, once those wheel sets are changed out, they're not scrap. They're not sold as scrap or anything unless they're really tore up bad. We have a repair shop up by Hershey that will retool them. They'll retrue the wheels, retread them and everything, and put it back in service again. You got a question, buddy? Every year? Whoa. That's your calculator? we average about 120 to 150 trains per day we'll go through here. So you take that number and times 365, and there you go. So now also off to your right hand side, okay, past that first track there, there's a set of 9 tracks there that are called our westbound receiving tracks. Trains that come in from the east that need to be classified and come in and stop there. And over our what we call our westbound hump, these trains will be pulled out and they'll be shoved up to a hill. Where once the cars get up to the top of the hill, there's a trainman up there that pulls a pin that separates those cars, and they go down into a bowl track. Now that bowl track, it's kind of hard to describe. But you can imagine what a tree looks like when it lays on the ground and you're up above it. That's what it looks like. You have one lead that goes into the bowl track, then it branches off, and it branches off several times. So there's actually a total of about 50 tracks in that one area where they separate them to. And the reason we do that, we call that classification. When you see a train go by, you know that all those cars on that train aren't necessarily going to the same end destination. We have an eastbound train, or excuse me, a westbound train coming through here. Not all those cars are going to North Platte or Cheyenne. Some of those cars are going to Denver, some are going to Salt Lake City, some Los Angeles, and so forth. So that's what the main purpose of the North Platte yard is to what we call reclassify those cars. They come in on one train, we break them apart, and we put them with other cars that are going to like destinations, build another train, and that train takes us to the next step of the journey. We do have 2 humps here in North Platte. One for westbound traffic, which is what you see over here off to your right. This is our west hump. And we have another one that's a much bigger hump. It's called the east hump. We'll be seeing that here in just a few minutes. Yes, sir. Do we have any trains that run through North Platte? We do, not that are planned. We do have an occasional train that runs through here. This is usually a crew change point for everything. Yes? Okay, Area 51, we'll talk about that when we get there. Okay, we'll talk about Area 51. We're going to go right in the middle of it. So, somebody else have a question back there? Yes, ma'am? Correct. The locomotives here in the yard, Some of them do have engineers on them, and some of them are remote control locomotives. You can tell the difference between the two, even from a distance. If you see a set of locomotives, whether it be a single locomotive or up to 3, then one of those has yellow flashing lights on the top of it. That is a remote control locomotive. All switch jobs inside of Bailey Yard are remote control switch jobs. We do have some engineers that work in here to do other kinds of jobs, but for the most part, everything's remote control here. What's that, sir? The remote control, who controls those remotes? There's each switch job has two switchmen on it. Each one of them controls that locomotive. They can be depending on the circumstances, they can be as far as 2 miles away from that locomotive to control it. The area responsibility for North Platte, our runs, me? Well, I used to run, when I was running on trains, I used to run from here to Cheyenne, and then before that I ran from here to South Morrow. But our area of responsibility here for North Platte Terminal, our crews run west out here as far as Cheyenne, Wyoming, and South Morrow, Nebraska, and as far east as Council Bluffs, Iowa, and Marysville, Kansas. We don't go any further than those points. Okay. Off to our left-hand side, immediately off to your left, you can actually see all the tracks of this bull tracks over here. This is a much bigger hump. This has got 64 tracks is what you're looking at side by side down there. If you look at the two cars coming down the hill, those cars just came from the top of the hump. Now, humping these trains is actually a huge process. It's not just as easy as it seems, shove a car to a hill and let gravity take over. There's a lot that goes on as those cars are coming up the hill, and there's a computer system up there that has picked up what that car is. There's a little scanner side on the side of it. They go through that scanner. That scanner tells them the car number, the weight of the car, the destination, the commodity on that car, and it's calculated once it gets to the top of the hump. Several calculations are made as far as what rail it's going into, how far it has to travel in that rail before it meets the next car on that rail. And they calculate that based on the speed of the car going down the hill here. And there's a series of retarders that will slow that car down, depending on what kind of speed it's going, to make sure that once it gets to that rail and meets the next car in that rail, it's going no more than 4 miles per hour. So that squeal sound you might hear out there a little bit, those are the retarders. Those are like the brake systems for those cars. Think of a giant pair of pliers squeezed onto a spinning piece of metal. That's exactly what those things are. Yes, sir.
Where are the little tags on the cars located in these hams?
They're little silver rectangles there's one on each side of the car, right on the side of it.
Down low?
Yeah, they're usually about eye level.
How many hours do you suppose are spent cleaning and tagging off of those?
Probably virtually none. I mean, it's all magnetic. They're not reading a barcode or anything like that. It's a magnetic transfer. It's like RFID.
It doesn't matter if people pay over.
No. But those retarders, as those cars go down the hump, if for some reason we have to stop a car, sometimes we'll find a handbrake half tied on it that's going to mess with the car, being able to get in the rail. The yardmaster in charge of those can stop any car in its tracks. I mean, just dead stop it. No matter how fast it's going, those retarders will stop. If they're all going to the same destination, they'll release them up to 3-car cuts. So there's the trainman up there that's pulling those pins. He's got a board, electronic board up there that just flashes the number 1, 2, or 3. So that's whatever number that says. That's how many cars he lets go at a time. Single cars, double cars, triple cars, however it is. Yeah, everything out there's automatic. Yes, sir. the train, the locomotives that bring these trains in are not the same ones that we're switching the cars out with. These locomotives you see off here to your left, these are road locomotives. These are not remote controlled. They're not used in switching operations. These are used to pull these trains from one destination to another. The yard switchers are much smaller. I was hoping to see some here a little bit ago, but we didn't really get a chance to see one. But we'll see some here shortly, I'm sure. What they do with this particular hump, what will happen is they'll run those remote control locomotives all the way around these tracks here. These are the receiving tracks for cars or for trains coming in from the west. They'll run it around to the west end. They'll tie onto it, and they'll just start pushing it. Pushes it right up the hill. The engine can't go over the hump. It depends on if they need it to or not. Sometimes we have to send the locomotives down there with the crew member to push cars on the rail. Because remember, the tracks are bowl tracks, so they look like a little bit like a bowl. So if a car rolls in there and doesn't make its coupling to the car in front of it, it'll start rolling back towards the center. So we got to get in there with the crew and kind of shove those down a little bit. Yes, sir.
Can you tell us what the grade is on going up the hump?
That I don't know for sure. So I do believe that the west hump is 7%, or excuse me, the east hump is 7%. I don't know what the west is. I know it's not quite as steep as that.
That's pretty good. Are the tracks heated for the winter, or they just have to load up on sand?
No, they're just loaded with sand. We don't heat anything out here in the winter, including the switchman. Believe me, I know. Question was how many locomotives do we own? That's anybody's guess. I couldn't even come up with a close number. Most of our units are built by General Electric, and that comes out of North Platte, Arkansas. Yes, sir. And it could be. It seems kind of low to me, but it could very well be. Yeah. So what we're doing now is we're coming up on, we kind of got sidetracked. We'll cover this little area that we just passed here when we come back through here. But we're coming up on top of this bridge here. We're going to try to stop for maybe a minute if we can. And you'll get a really unique vantage point to be able to take a picture or video or whatever from a train from above it. And from that point, you'll actually be able to see a good portion of these trains and get an idea of just exactly how long these are. One thing you want to keep in mind, especially with the coal trains, is when you see these coal trains and take a look at how long they are, if you think they're long now, we actually double those trains, a lot of those trains up before they leave here. So some of these, like this coal train, this loaded coal train we're looking here, is probably close to maybe 2.5 miles long. When it leaves here, we're going to double it up with another one, so you're looking at a train that's almost 5 miles longer, maybe longer.
How many locomotives?
So locomotives, you'll probably have at least 5 locomotives on there. 2 up front, 2 in the middle, and 1 on the rear end. Probably one Couch Bluffs. Yeah, he was leaving town. The blue light flashed on a locomotive. If you happen to see a blue light anywhere on railroad property, that means that there's some kind of craft working on that train. So nobody else, you can't get in that rail, you can't do anything, you can't remove it. You just stay completely out of there while that craft is over there. Yes, sir. Okay, this track, if you look off to your left here, this track that's immediately on the side of the bus, this is just a transfer track that goes from one side of the yard to the other. We can use this track to take locomotives for the diesel shop and come over here to the west run through and back and forth. This way we don't have to worry about fouling our main lines to try to get back and forth and disrupt traffic. We just go over the top of it. And if need be, if we have to flip a train around, we can actually bring it up and over this thing and flip the entire train around. So it doesn't happen very often, but when it does happen, it's a pretty unique thing to see. I think I've only seen it happen maybe twice since I've been employed out here. No, that's another overpass. That's Birdwood Overpass. No, that's not real. Now earlier you were told that Bailey Yard's about 8 miles long. If you look way back there where the grain elevators are, okay, that's our eastern limit. The start of of Bailey Yard right there, and our western limit is that next overpass down there. That's how big. That's just to give you an idea how big this yard is. Yeah, it's triple track through here, and then double track once you get past Julesburg, I think, somewhere thereabouts. Yep, everything in here is railroad property. Those are two of those are support. The other track is they're called bull tracks. They basically keep everything in place for wobbling around, kind of stabilize the track. That's one over the bridge. Now coming up to our front here, we're coming up to the West Run-Through area. Oh shoot, another bus coming at us. We just ran into the tour behind us, I think it is. Yeah, they're actually, we're going to be in their position here soon. They should be able, hopefully they see us. Okay, good.
Give it hell.
So anyhow, if you look up to your front here, you see that tan-colored building. That's actually not Union Pacific. That's General Electric. Union Pacific, we talked about it earlier about how we buy locomotives out of North Little Rock. Well, just like when you buy a brand new car, there's a lot of work that needs done on a car that only your dealer can do. Same thing with locomotives. And years ago, when back in the early 2000s, we were buying tons and tons of locomotives, and they had to have warranty things done, or updates, or recalls, or whatever the case may have been. Well, it was taking us about a 90-day turnaround time when we'd lose one of those locomotives, pull it out of service. Well, for the amount of business we were doing at that time, that was just impractical. So General Electric built this little maintenance facility right here that could do all that work on property, and took our 90-day turnaround time to just a matter of a couple days. So that really helped us out a lot. Okay, now this complex right up here to your front and to the left. Okay, this is what we call a run-through facility. Off to the front, we'll come to that area here in just a second, and primarily our bulk commodity trains, like coal trains, intermodal trains, things like that, will come into here. These are trains that never need to be classified. They always stay together. They go to the same destination. They have the same originating point. So those trains will come in here, and we keep them together. They stop up here. We'll disconnect the locomotives on the head end and bring them up here to these racks. And these racks, the mechanical forces, they can work on them. They can do inspections on them. They refuel them. They refill them up with sand and check the oil, and away they go. They can put it on a train and get ready to blast off again. Okay, the amount of fuel that these locomotives hold, these big locomotives that you see right off to the side, those fuel tanks will hold about 5,000 gallons of fuel.
How long does that last?
Well, the miles per gallon depends on your terrain. We use a lot of physics when we move these trains around. So let's say a loaded coal train going from here to South Morrow, you may use about 1,000 gallons per locomotive that's online and actually pulling. Whereas you could be taking a manifest train going from here to Council Bluffs, that's a loaded manifest train, and virtually use no fuel whatsoever. Mainly because it's all downhill. So it's just a real slight downgrade but it's small enough to where once we get up to speed, you can basically put a neutral in the amount of the inertia you're generating, it just takes it all the way there. Well, that's that train there. That's since it's a loaded empty coal bucket, it's probably going to South Moore, Nebraska, and then from South Moore we'll go to one of the mills, the mines up in Wyoming, and we'll probably see that train the day after tomorrow. Yeah, Powder River Basin. What determines the amount of engines on a train is how much tonnage it's expected to pull. So you got a question back there?
Are all the railroad lines, do any of them, like with the wood things that are holding up the metal sides, are any of those concrete or are they all wood?
Yeah, most of the ones here in the yard are all wood. Once you get out on the main lines, which is the area between terminals, pretty much all those are concrete. Probably within a few years, they're all going to be concrete. Supposedly. Yes, sir. They have a matrix on how much horsepower they need per train, depending on its destination, and they just double up locomotives till they meet a horsepower requirement. The way they go, there's very few trains that have specific locomotives that have to be attached to them. So, yes, ma'am. Okay, Area 51 building. Well, this Area 51 building is this is our head shed. This is for the west run through. This is where your yard master is, your car foreman is, your mechanical foreman, all your bosses are in there. It gets the name Area 51. The official reason it gets the name Area 51 is that one time, I think it was like 2006 or 2007, we actually ran 51 coal trains through this run-through facility. Okay, that's the story. That's the official story. For those of us that are trainmen working out here, we kind of equate that building to the Area 51 out there in the Nevada desert. There's some strange things that happen out there. Well, that building right there, you can get some strange things come out of that building once in a while. So, it's up to you. You can believe whichever story you want. I don't care. All right. I'm required to tell you the official version, but.
Are these examples of your switchers over here?
No, these aren't switchers over here. These are still road locomotives. I haven't seen any switchers yet.
Okay.
Okay, quit. How do we get our fuel here? Well, we're going to go past two. As a matter of fact, you can see them off in the distance there. The two big fuel tanks there. The blue one over there, I know back when we were really running a lot of coal out of here back in the early 2000s, we would refill that blue one every day. So, and the fuel is piped in here. We have our own pipeline come in the yard. So, if not, we would have a non-stop flow of trains and trucks with fuel bringing it in here. How many people work here at Bailey Yard? If you take about all the crafts and that work out here, the machinist, the carman, the management, and your trainmen, you're looking at right about 3,000, 3,500 people. Yes, ma'am. Well, the future of the railroad for human beings, I mean, just kind of, I don't know anything official, to be honest with you, but just looking at the way everything's going in general, I think you're going to see a lot more automation and things. you know, you sit there and you look at those drones flying over, you know, Afghanistan and places like that. They're flown out of Wilmington, Virginia. I don't see any reason why they couldn't run trains on a defined track via a remote location. Do I like that vision? No, not really. But I don't know if anything like that's in the works. There's a lot of automation on there right now. The positive train controller right on these trains does a lot of work to make sure that that train doesn't get itself in a position where an accident could happen. So, but you know, I guess I'm of an old-fashioned nature where I always like to make sure that you know, there's somebody on there to pull that handle and stop it if we really need to. You know, I don't care how many computers you have and stuff. You know, things can always interfere with the computer. Look how often you look on the news, and you know, somebody hacked into Visa and got 20 million credit card numbers. And, you know, so there's no reason that can't happen to us. My personal opinion, that's nothing official on company news. So please, if there's anybody in the news media here, yada yada yada, you know the speech. The control of these trains, okay. Most trains within the railroad from Union Pacific are controlled by the dispatchers in Omaha, and they're just like air traffic controllers. Same thing except for on the rails. But Bailey Yard being the way it is, and as big as it is, and as many trains as we're processing, the dispatchers in Omaha do not control traffic through Bailey Yard. We have our own dispatcher that takes care of the yard itself. So we can dispatch our own trains from here and bring them in the yard and everything. Now, that being said, although Bailey Yard is considered a yard, being one yard, this yard is actually broken up into 7 smaller yards. Each one has its own mission, its own purpose, and all those areas working together, we managed to get trains built. And there's our switchers down there, off to our right. Yep, the yellow flashing lights, they're remote control.
How many switcher sets do you have in the yard?
We actively use probably 14, let's see, actually it's 14. There'll be about 22 switchers running per shift, and they probably got at least that much in reserve. So if we need it, oh yeah, they're not state of the art. I promise you that. So, there's locomotives out there that have manufacturing stamps on right about the time I was born. So I'll let you guys figure out what date that could be. Eyewitness. Yeah, they definitely last a long time. Okay, now coming down the area that we kind of missed due to some questions and everything, this other facility over here, this is another run-through facility. Kind of like, a lot like the west run-through we just came from, except for this is our east run-through. So if you haven't figured out by now, everything in Bailey Yard is an east this or a west this. Doesn't matter whether it's on the north or south side of the yard, it's an east or a west. But anyhow, this is a lot more proficient system here for the east run-through, because the entire train stays intact. The locomotives stay on it, and everything stays together. So all the crew does is they get in and tie the train down, they leave. Everybody else can jump on it while it's in the rail. The car force, the mechanical forces, everybody else can do it and then do their part, and as the crew is called for it. And usually by the time they're done, the crew jumps on and takes it out of here. So the average dwell time in here is from a time a train stops till it goes again is between 3 to 6 hours. So these are usually priority trains a lot of times. UPS ships a lot of stuff through us. They hit these run-throughs, and they're just, they stop and go about that. The graffiti on the cars, we don't really have a whole lot of graffiti problems here in North Platte because we're pretty isolated from most population centers. Mostly you see that happening in your bigger urban areas, Chicago, Council Bluffs, to be honest with you, things like that. I haven't really heard of us having a problem with it here. Now here's those two fuel tanks I was talking about. Now the special agents, they don't want me to tell you how much fuel's in these things for whatever purposes, but I'm sure if you're observant you can figure it out for your own self. But as long as it doesn't come out of my mouth, you guys are good. Now here off to the other side here, off to the right hand side, this is our old fueling rack. This is the original run through. We still do use this. We use this to fuel up our fuel trucks, to fill up our distributed power units that are on the ends of trains. We use trucks. It's not really practical to bring you through the run through and try to stop your train to fill that thing up. So what a distributed power unit is, if you ever seen a train go by and it's got a locomotive on the end of it, that's a distributed power unit. So your engineer can actually use that locomotive. You can either have a mirror image what the head end locomotives are doing, and they're going to do the exact same thing, speed up, slow down, whatever, or he can use that locomotive independently of the head end. So oftentimes they'll want to do that if they're coming up to a hill. They'll actually put a little bit more power to that DPU to push the train together a little bit, to bunch it up. So when they go over that hill, it stays together. When the rear end comes over the hill, they don't catch all that slack action come back at them and knock them around real hard. So, and they can also use it for other things too, slow the train down when you're going down a hill. Yeah, they help out a lot. Actually, believe it or not, although it's another locomotive, it actually saves fuel. So, yeah, that's controlled by the engineer up on the head end. Yes, sir. Life expectancy of an engine? No, I don't. I've never heard of how long they expect one to last. I really couldn't tell you. I'm sure there is a point. It's probably when the wheels rust off of them and they fall off the rail. But I mean, some of these locomotives out here literally have millions of miles on them. I mean, they literally do. Yep, and here's our switch crew, or one of our switch crews coming over the hump. So we were talking earlier how sometimes those cars won't couple up with the rail and they'll start coming back out. Most likely these guys are coming down there to push those rails down a little bit and give them some room to help them on the train. Now we're going to come around the other side of the hump here in a second, and we're going to get a real close, detailed look at. You'll be able to get a good view of the bowl and the retarders. Unfortunately, they're not humping anything, so you won't get your ears blown out there. You know, those retarders, when they're in operation, they're actually slowing down something, especially if it's something real heavy. Nails on a chalkboard don't even come close to the nail noise those things make. Okay, now you look out to your front, you can start to see the layout of the bowl, how it's just side-by-side tracks. And you start over here, you see those two guys walking, those are maintenance guys. They're doing what they call hump maintenance. They're making sure the retarders work really as designed. Remember what the retarders do? They're just like a great big pair of pliers or a pair of tweezers. All they do is pinch between the wheels, or pinch the wheels to slow them down. Here's a real good look at the retarders, the way they're set up right here. Okay, one thing, if you guys pay attention, you see the blue pipeline right there. Okay, you see a couple of them out there. All these switches and all these retarders, everything in here is operated by compressed air. It's all pneumatic. So that being said, it probably takes a whole lot of air to run these things. A lot more than my air compressor I got at home. I'm pretty sure of that. But in order to facilitate the amount of air that we need, and we're coming up around to it now, if you look at these blue cylinders over here, these blue coils, that building those are attached to is just one gigantic air compressor. That's all it is. And all it does is control the switches in the retarders out here in the East Bowl. Everybody likes to claim they are, but it was actually me. Back when Grenville Dodge and I scouted this place out in 1865, we came up with... Damn, I gave my birthday too. Yeah, well, they might have to go down there and test the retarder too. It's hard to say. The crews consist of just a conductor and engineer. Certain trains may have a brakeman on board, but most of them all have a conductor and an engineer on each train. Yeah, the left, and then when you get past another left, right there. No, most of those cabooses got bought up by collectors. But we do have two cabooses here in North Platte that we use. We call them our blizzard bus. Because if we get severe snowstorms out west of here, we have to relieve crews. We'll take those two cabooses, put them together with a locomotive on each end of it, and we'll run the replacement crews out there to relieve those crews. That's about the only time you're ever going to see a caboose. Right up to our front, we're coming into our diesel repair facilities. This is one of the largest diesel shops in the UP system, if not the largest. No, we do not have a roundhouse anymore. Yeah, that's been gone for I don't know how many years. Yeah, it's been gone for a long time. They have stuff similar to this. I don't know whether it's as good a quality as it is here. Sterling's Northern, CSX, Norfolk Southern, Canadian Pacific. Those are leased locomotives. So we got if we don't have enough locomotives in an area that we of our own, we have to lease them from somebody. Basically it's like national car rental for locomotives. Well, clean locomotives have nothing to do with production. Okay, that's it. My son and his room are the same thing. Yeah, my room being washed doesn't mean. Well, that means they're just used. So this building off to our left here, this is our supply operations building. This is kind of like the heart of North Platte, believe it or not. Everything that we use in this yard, whether it be pencils, toilet paper, or locomotives, comes through this building. So, I mean, anything we need out here. Water, we go through a lot of bottled water out here. It all comes through this building. facility here, they can do pretty much anything that needs to be done with the locomotive outside of warranty work, of course, because we have GE for that. But I mean, they can repair and replace fuel tanks. They can repair the diesel engines on here, the air compressors. I mean, you name it, they can do it to these things. All these locomotives you see here to the front and off to your right, these are all locomotives that are waiting to go into the facility for one reason or another. A lot of them are probably going in for routine inspections and maintenance. Others may have a mechanical issue. Well, you're lucky. Actually, you're lucky they're not doing the whistle test today. So I think they deliberately make sure that during rail days they don't do whistle tests, because there's some kind of sound meter over here someplace where they gotta sit there. They lay back on the horn for like 5 minutes, and everything is like, oh my god. No warnings. Yeah. Yeah, we have every locomotive we have has inspections that have to be made. Some of them are on timelines, and some of them are on mileage lines. So depending on how many miles the locomotive's got underneath it, or how long it's been since its last inspection, they're on a routine schedule. Yes. That's all done on a whole different scale. I mean, how we log in. It's all from. Well, yeah, you're called for a job, okay, and start time. So it's a given that you're going to be there, and your start time is here. Then you have up to 12 hours to work at that point. Okay, we're going to stop here at the Spike for a little while. You guys are free to get off, go shopping, or you can stay here if you'd like. We are going to depart here at 1:15. So it gives you about a little over, almost 20 minutes, or 2:15. I'm sorry. I've been up since 4:30 this morning, so give me some slack, please. So thank God it's 2:15. That means I had another bus tour yet. But now we'll leave here right at 2:15. If you want to stay, you're more than welcome to stay. There'll be the next bus behind us can pick you up if they have room to bring you back. If there's no room or whatever the case is, or you want to stay longer, we will have one last bus leave Cody Park at 5:30 empty. Is only coming out to here that will pick up anybody that needs a ride back to Cody Park. So, but yeah, you're welcome to stay here, do some shopping, get off, use the restroom, whatever you'd like to do. But we will leave at exactly 2:15.
No, Dad, I wanted to stop
All these locomotives.